Hello, everyone. Welcome to another day of the free JavaScript Bootcamp. I hope that my audio issues are gone today. If you hear them again, let me know and I'll just restart Chrome. Sorry about that yesterday. Real quick before we get started, so we can jump right into part 2 here. My name is Ramon. Jess and I are running a series of free bootcamps. If you want to join in or catch up on the calendar, please check out our website, our bad website at the Bad Website Club. There you'll find all the calendar. Oh, Tina, thank you for confirming that my audio is okay. Yeah, you can catch up there. If you want to see all of the recordings, you can go to youtube.com/@badwebsiteclub and make sure that you conform to our code of conduct, bit.ly, bdbc-coc. If you see anything out of sorts, please let us know. Yeah, that was the real quick version because we're just going to hop right in and continue implementing our dice game. So where we last left off, we had implemented the ability to roll dice, as you can see here. Once you've rolled 3 times, you can't roll anymore. What we're going to be doing next is implementing the checking for duplicates in our array of numbers. So we're going to do that by writing our new function called getHighest duplicates, which is a function which takes a parameter called r. And my guess from context is that r here is short for array. That is, it takes an array of numbers and it's going to give us the highest duplicates there. So that looks good. Let's check our code. And we got our green stripe. Our code passes. I'm going to pat myself on the back here. Pat, pat. I think a little encouragement is always good. Now, we will need to get the number of occurrences for each unique number in that array. So we're going to get a variable called counts, and that's going to be an empty object. So in this object counts, we're going to be storing the number of occurrences of each number. So my guess is that the key or the key of each property is going to be the number itself. And the value is going to be the amount of times that number shows up in the array. But don't take my word for it. Let's keep going, pat, pat, and see how it looks. So we're going to do my favorite kind of loop. I love for of loops. Don't ask me why. I just think they feel good. So we're going to do for let. Is it let or const? You know, for saying that I love these so much, I don't quite remember. So num of. Does anybody remember, by the way, what the difference is between a for of loop and a for in loop? I hope this is correct. Yeah. Pat, pat. So we're going to loop through each number in the array. Now, in each, perfect. Kristen says keys versus values. So yeah, the for in loop through, let me try this again. The for in loop loops through the keys, whereas the for of loop loops through the values. Perfect. Hello, folks joining in. So for each iteration of this array, we're going to check if the number exists in the counts object. So we're going to do if. Now, how do we check if it exists? We're going to do counts num. And there, how does this check that it exists? Well, if it exists, it's going to be truthy. If it does not exist, i.e. if it is undefined, it's going to be falsy. Hello, folks joining in the chat. Lovely to see you. Okay, so if it does exist, we're going to counts num. I'm going to do a plus equals 1, which is one way of doing it. But we could also do plus plus to increment it by 1. And if it does not exist, we're going to set counts num to be 1. Ooh, we got a question here saying, hey, I'm new to coding and wondering why is it more common to use let and const rather than var? I never have the answers to this by heart, but I do have an article. Free Code Camp. Var, let, and const, what is the difference? Here, let me post it for you there in the chat. The short version is let lets you define a variable whose value can be reassigned, but it can't be declared more than once. Const, on the other hand, lets you declare a variable that cannot be reassigned. That is, it is immutable, which means if you set a value for it, you can never change it again. The reason these are more used nowadays is just to make our code a little bit safer so that we don't make mistakes when coding. But why do we not use var? So the thing with var is that it is a little bit of an older way of declaring variables, and it is more flexible because you can just declare in vars all over the place and reassign them. But it can cause problems in terms of like where you're accessing those variables. This is a topic of scope, and also where they are used, right? Yeah. You're very welcome. CBMH is asking, do you have any resource on what kind of portfolio to build for a front-end developer? I'm going to bookmark that for the end, just so we can focus on the lesson. Hope that's cool. So let's continue. Right. If it exists, we increment it by 1. If it does not exist, we set it to 1. Perfect. So our code passes. We pat ourselves on the back. Pat, pat. And we keep going. Now, we're going to be keeping track of when a particular number appears 3 or more times within that array. So after our loop, you can see here, we're going to use let. And here you can see we're going to be doing that difference between const and let because we want to find out what the highest count variable is. That is, which number in our array occurs the most amount of time, the highest amount of time, which one has the highest count. So cool, code passes, pat, pat, and we keep going. So now we're going to do another for of loop that loops through R, or the array itself, const num of R. Now you might think, hold on, that looks the same, which it does, but we're just going to loop through those numbers again. That's fine. Pat, pat. Let's keep going. So what we're going to do is get the number of the duplicate counts for each number in that array. So we're going to get count. So what we're doing here is assigning to the variable count the number of times that number occurs in the array. Cool. Looks good. Pat, pat. We'll keep going. Now, in order to check if it occurs 3 times, we just need to check and see that if that count is greater than or equal to 3. So if count, whoops, is bigger than or equal to 3, and that's how we're going to evaluate a 3 of a kind, we're going to assign highest count, which remember is this variable up here, to be count, which could be 3 or more in this case. Cool, I made a mistake. Okay, so I need to check that count is bigger than 3 and that count is bigger than the highest count itself. Because it could be that the highest count is already bigger, because we're looping, than what the count currently is. So that's super valid. And this is why you read the instructions thoroughly, Ramon. Highest count. There we go. So cool. If the count is bigger than 3, and of course we have a count that's bigger than what the highest count currently is, then we assign it. So what we're doing here is looping through our entire array and checking that that count is indeed higher. Pat, pat. So that's for 3 of a kind. But what about 4 of a kind? We're going to be doing the same thing here, but instead of 3, we're going to do it with 4. So if count is bigger than or equal to 4, count is bigger than highest count, then the highest count is equals to count. Now you're going to notice it looks pretty similar to this. And if we had time to refactor or clean up our code, we might combine some of this into perhaps a function or something like this. For now, we check our code, it passes. We've got our 3 of a kind check. We've got our 4 of a kind check. Pat ourselves on the back, and we keep going. So when they roll a 3 of a kind or a 4 of a kind, they will receive a score totaling the sum of all the 5 dice values. Now, we've done summing in JavaScript before, so I'm feeling pretty good about this. Nojo Sojo noticing patterns. I love it. This looks similar to the largest value finding in selection sort. You're absolutely right. Oh, CBMage says we're building a dice system. Yeah, here, let me give you the link. I hope this works. I mean, I'm skipping you to step 42, but still. What we're learning here is we're making a dice pokery kind of game that when you roll a certain amount, you can assign yourself a score. I spent way too much of my childhood playing games like these on my DS. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, so we want to sum up the values of all of the members of the array. And we're going to do that using reduce. So we're going to assign a variable called sum of all dice. And we're going to do that using r.reduce. And we've done this before. Specifically for this example, our callback is going to take A and B as parameters. Remember, A is the aggregator and B is the current value in the array that we are reducing. So we're going to return implicitly A plus B. And our second parameter of reduce, remember, is our initial value, which will start at 0. So that will sum up all of the members of the array, which in this case are dice values. I didn't do it right. Oh, wait, where am I? Dice values are... Oh, my mistake. I'm supposed to use a reduce method on dice values are. Yes. So right. The aggregator was that sort of conceptual bucket we tipped values into as we went through the array, adding things. Very accurate. Thank you. So instead of R, we want dice values are. My mistake. If you don't remember where we defined it, check it out. You can double click it, and I don't know if you can tell, but in FreeCodeCamp's editor, you can see here where it's been defined. So if I scroll up to here, check it out. There it is. So if we scroll even higher up, there it is. Let dice values are equals empty array. And here, when we roll the dice, we set those dice values. Perfect. So that looks good. Pat, pat. Let's keep going. Now, we're going to start enabling those update radio options. Remember, yesterday we were implementing these. So, for example, if we have that highest number of duplicates being 4 or more, then we have 4 of a kind, and we can update that radio button. So, if highest count is bigger than or equals to 4, then we're going to call update radio option. Hello, folks joining in. Now, we want to pass in the number 1 and sum of all dice as arguments. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I don't remember what those arguments are, but no worries, because we can scroll over to where we wrote that function, update radio option. Give me 1 sec. Where is it? Get highest duplicate. So it's the option node and the score. Yep, it's the index of the node, of the radio button, and the score that we assign to that radio button. Do you know what? So, cool. So the reason we're passing 1 is because it's the index of the radio button 4 of a kind. Makes sense? And the score assigned to it, remember, it's the sum of those dice values, of all dice. Dice. Which is all well and good, but you know what? I want to try it out. So what is this again? This is sum of all dice. Nope, it's higher up. What's the name of this function? Get highest duplicates are, and remember that's an array. So what if I just call it with, I already forgot what it's called. Get highest duplicates. I'm going to copy paste. I want to try it out just to see how it looks. So get highest duplicates, and we're going to call that with, we need to pass in those 5 values. What if I just put all of them as 6? 6, 6, 6, 6, 6. Because remember, we need 6 dice, right? Now check it out. I've kind of manually run this. And you can see the button is activated, 4 of a kind. The score is 0, however. The reason for that is because, well, I have gotten my highest duplicates, but remember that dice values are reduced. Dice values are still an empty array. I haven't rolled the dice yet. But hey, I'm in charge here. What if I just roll the dice before I do it? Now check it out. Now the dice are rolled before I get my highest duplicates. We're just playing around here. This isn't how the game is supposed to work, of course. You could call this cheating. So 2, 4, 6, 3, 4. Now check it out. The button is activated because I rolled a bunch of 6s, 4 of a kind, and the score is 19. 19 is the sum of 2, 4, 6, plus 6 is 12, plus 3 is, why am I doing this? 15 plus 4 is 19. Cool. Just wanted to showcase that. I think it's always good to play around with the code. How does that look? Good. Pat, pat. Let's keep going. Now we're going to do the same for the 3 of a kind checkbox. So, feeling pretty good about this. If highest count is bigger than or equals to 3, then we will call update radio option. Now, the first parameter is 0 because that's the index of the first button. Makes sense? Sum of all dice is still the score assigned. Sum of all dice. Now things get interesting. What if we roll our dice? Cool. Now let's, what is it called? Get highest counts, I think. Pass in our array. Now, instead of a bunch of 6s, let me put in 3, 2, 2, 2, 1. That's not what the function is called, is it? Get highest duplicates. Now check it out. There's 3 of a kind here, so the 3 of the kind gets activated. If I put in 4 2s now, both the 3 of the kind and the 4 of a kind get activated. If there are only 2 2s, nothing gets activated. So cool. We're starting to see the game come together, which is pretty cool. Does code work? Yes. Pat, pat. Let's keep going. So the user doesn't get 3 of a kind or 4 of a kind. They will not receive any options that round. So at the end of our get highest duplicates function, we're going to update our radio option with the arguments of 5 and 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, none of the above. Remember, these are options of scores that we can assign. So if we don't get any 3s or 4s, we have the option of assigning ourselves none of the above and a score of 0. And y'all know what I'm going to do. Roll. I should copy paste this. Get highest duplicates. Notice I'm just saying, so every 4 of a kind is not 3 of a kind. No, every 4 of a kind is 3 of a kind, because if there are 4 of a kind, then there are definitely 3 of a kind. Right? That makes sense. I hope. 1, 1, 2, 2, 3. So check it out. There's no 3 of a kind. There's no 4 of a kind. So we can assign none of the above. If I put in another 1, then there is 1 of a kind. There is 3 of a kind. So we can do that. If I put in 4 1s, then there is the option of none of the above, 3 of a kind, or 4 of a kind. Cool. Let's keep going. Pat, pat. No, just saying, why didn't that show when you tried to pass all 6's array? It did, didn't it? Or what do you mean? Could you clarify? So inside the else clause of our, see, now we're in our dice rolling. So we're going to roll the dice. We're going to call get highest duplicates with the dice values array as an argument, as an argument. And now we're going to try rolling the dice a few times to see if I can get those. See, now I get to showcase that I'm very unlucky on stream. For example, 5, 5, 3, 6, 4 gives me none of the above. So I'm going to roll again. 4, 5, 3, 5, 4, still nothing. And still nothing. Can't roll anymore. So, well, that's not great. Let's try again. Nothing. Nothing. Hey, 5, 6, 5, 6, 6. That's 3 of a kind. Cool. Do you want to try one more time, see if I can get a 4 of a kind? Nope. Nope. Wow. See, this is why I don't play dice games in real life. I'm very unlucky. Still nothing. Okay, one more time. See, this, I also keep trying. I got 3 of a kind. That's pretty cool. But if I go again, I got 3 of a kind again. Didn't I? Oh, no, it gets stored. Cool. Still no 4 of a kind. Well, look, it works. Let's keep going. Oh, now we need to reset the value before each dice roll. We need to reset the values of the score inputs and spans so that a new value can be displayed. So we're going to get, see, remember when I did roll a 3 of a kind and the option was still there? This is where it's like, nope, you need to reset it. Reset radio option. And I'm assuming, just from context, that what we're going to be doing in this function is setting disabled on all of the inputs. Could be wrong. Let's take a look. Pat. So we're going to loop over all of the score inputs for each. So in our callback, we're going to have input as that parameter name. Fantastic. And for each of those, we're going to set input.disabled equals true. And input.checked equals false. You might be wondering, wait, what is checked? Checked is when I click on it and it shows a little blue circle inside of it. We're going to uncheck all of them. Feeling pretty good about this? Pat. Next, we're going to need to reset the spans. Yeah. So score spans dot for each span. And each of those I'm going to span dot text content equals empty string. Feeling pretty good about this? Pat, pat. So before we roll the dice, we update our stats, and then we do the highest duplicates, we're going to reset radio option. So, for example, I just rolled a 3 of a kind. In the next one, if I don't get a 3 of a kind, this should now be disabled and the span should be reset to nothing. Let's take a look. Oh, I got a 4 of a kind. Oh, I could stop the stream here. I won. But notice the score got updated too. So score is 13, score is 13. Fantastic. I'm going to roll one more time. Great. Check it out. 6, 1, 5, 3, 1, nothing. So 3 of a kind and 4 of a kind are disabled, unchecked, and the span is empty. Luck is finally coming my way. Yeah. Great. Pat, pat. Let's keep going. So, of course, when we make that selection, keep the above selected score, we're currently not able to keep the score selected and move on to the next round. So in the next step, we're going to build out the algorithm that keeps track of and displays the score for all of the 6 rounds of the game. So const date score, and it takes 2 parameters, selected value and achieved. I can't determine or infer or guess from context what achieved does, but we'll figure it out. But in the meantime, pat, pat, let's keep going. So selected value parameter represents the option the user chose during that round. Because when I roll the dice a couple times, let's say I chose that 3 of a kind. Score is 20. When I click keep the above selected score, what I expect to have happen is that when I click on that, I expect that 20 gets added to my total score and the rolls get reset to 0, pardon me, and the round gets reset to 2. So total score will be assigned to be plus equals selected value. However, because that selected value is a string, we need to use it as an argument for parse int. What this does, it turns that string into an integer or a whole number. Right? Yeah. Pat, pat. Let's keep going. Now, we're going to update the display of the total score. So, score history dot text content is going to we're going to append this to the HTML. Now we remember that it's append HTML. I believe. I could be wrong. We'll look it up if we're wrong. Nope. Let's not get distracted. Append HTML, and we're going to pass in as a template literal argument li with achieved and selected value. Could be inner HTML plus equals. That's why I'm like, we'll see. So score history, append HTML, and that list item. Let's take a look. We should assign total score to the text content property of total score text. Did I skip a step? I did. Silly me. Total score text dot. Mehmet is saying inner HTML. You're right. Text content. But I want it to be append HTML. Total score. Yep. Yep, y'all called it. So score history dot inner HTML plus equals, and then we'll add that. How's that? Still not there. That's okay. What am I doing wrong here? Score history dot inner. Oh, look at me spelling it wrong. It's not inner HTML in camel case. It's inner HTML all caps. Whew. Pat. Look at us go. Amazing. So after they make that selection, they should be able to keep that score and move on to the next round. And that's the part of like clicking on that button. So we're going to keep score button. We're going to add an event listener to it. That event being click. And that second argument, remember, is the callback, which is an arrow function that's currently empty because, pat, we're going to be filling it up in the next step. So when a radio button is checked, we need to save its value and ID. So we're going to create two variables, one called selected value, and the other one is let achieved. Cool. See, now from context, I might be able to figure out. I think achieved in this case might be which role, like 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind, etc. Which one we achieved. So cool. We will need to loop through each radio button to see which one has the checked attribute. So we're going to use a for const, what are we calling it? Radio button of score inputs. So we're going to loop through them, look for one that has the checked attribute set to true, and then we're going to break out of our loop, I'll bet. I think so. So what we're going to do is check with an if statement saying, hey, is the radio button checked? Remember, this is truthy because it's either true or false. If it is, we'll set selected value to be radio button dot value, and we'll set the achieved, the one we achieved, to be radio button dot ID. And then we're going to use break. I don't think we've used break yet in a loop, have we? Break is fantastic because what it does is it says like, hey, once you reach here, break out of the loop. Stop looping. You want to check it out in Python Tutor? Let's check it out in Python Tutor. We'll just write a new one. So Python Tutor. So, oh, look at that. So we've got our, we'll rewrite this. For const fruit of fruits. So if fruit is equals to strict equality operator, or 3 equals as I like to call it, banana, break. Just want to show you all what happens. So watch how we step through the loop. So we've got an array with 3 elements, apple, banana, and cantaloupe. So we're going to start our loop at the first fruit, which is apple. So we're going to check, hey, is fruit equals to banana? Is apple equals to banana? It is not, so we move on to the banana. Is banana equals to banana? Yes, it is, so we will break out of the loop. Now you might think, cool, now we'll move on to cantaloupe, but check it out. It's done running because it broke out of the loop. It broke out at that step. So it's like, hey, get me out of here. We're done with this loop. We're done iterating through this for loop. And that's the magic of the break keyword. So here we're saying, hey, once you find that checked radio button, assign those values for me, please, and then stop looping. I don't need you to loop anymore. Now you might think like, well, what if we don't want to let me try that again. What if we don't want to stop there? What if we want to keep looping through all of the radio buttons? You don't, because you're looking for the one that's checked. And because of the magic of radio buttons, only one radio button can be checked at a time in this group. Look at what Jess wrote. I really like it. I always like to think of break as you telling your loop when you're tired of it running. I always picture yelling break time and the loop quitting. That's really good. Thank you, Jess. So, when the user makes that selection, the rounds, roles, and scores need to be updated. So we'll add an if statement. So if that selected value is truthy, if it is, we will roles, we will assign the number 0 to roles because we will start a new round, and we will increment round by 1. Then we will update stats and reset radio option. Finally, we will call that update score function where we pass in our selected value and which one we achieved for the arguments. Now let's see. Cool. That's a bad score. That's a bad score. Sadly, no score for me. So I'm going to select none of the above. Going to keep my score. We can see there. Cool. Not a great score. And we'll keep going. So I will roll again. Roll again. Roll again. Ooh, I am unlucky. But notice, now I'm on round 2. Keep that score. Oh, no. Okay. Maybe third time is a charm. I'll roll the dice. Roll again. Got a 3 of a kind. You know what? I'm not going to gamble. I'm going to keep the above selected score. So now the score history is total score of 12, and I've got a 3 of a kind here. Let me see if I can get a 4 of a... Oh, no, never mind. That's a 3 of a kind. I want to keep that. Hold on. Hold on. Fine. But we can see the game is running. I'm gonna stop tempting fate there. So our code passes. Pat pat. But I want to answer this question from Nojo Sojo. What happens when for of finds in an array is not supposed to find like a number in an array of strings? Will it show an error? I'm not sure I understand the question, Nojo Sojo. Are you saying like if fruit is 3 equals to like 9? What's going to happen there is it's never going to break out of the loop because, well, apple is not 9, banana is not 9, and cantaloupe is not 9. You can compare a number and a string. That's totally fine. The loop is just never going to break. Is that what you mean? Stephen B is saying we use the dot notation for radio button checked and not the bracket notation. I went on a tangent to try and clear up when to use each, but I'd love to hear your approach, Ramon, or others too. Cool. Let's briefly examine that. So we have an object. Whoops, I zoomed in when I did not intend to. So okay, no, I need something better. How about name, Florencia, age 27, and date of birth 20 dot 08 dot why did I do birth? Why did I do date of birth? 1997. Okay, here's this object. Let's say we want to console log Florencia's name. We can go object.name. This is one way of accessing it. We can also do this with bracket notation. Okay? This is equivalent, hold on. Yes. These two are equivalent. This is two ways of accessing properties in an object. However, notice that date of birth has spaces in it. We can't use spaces in dot notation. Date of birth like this is going to give us errors. This is where bracket notation comes in. Date of birth. This is okay. This does not work. There's a third reason for using bracket notation. Say you want to access a property on this object, but that the property that you want to access is stored in a variable. Now I can console log the name by passing in that string name, or age, or date of birth. The question, when I know what it is and I can use either dot or object notation, which one should I use? Y'all are gonna hate my answer to this. There is no right or wrong reason, and the most beautiful and horrifying thing about JavaScript is that every code base is different, and folks are going to have different approaches to it. Pick one and be consistent. That's the best advice I can give. I hope that was what you were asking, Stephen B. Okay. Oh, if I try to click on keep score without making a selection, nothing happens. So we're going to add an else here to say, if I didn't select something, that'll show an alert saying this string. Please select an option or roll the dice. Let's give it a try. And I'm sorry, y'all can't see it, but I promise at the top there is that alert. But cool, I'm feeling good about that. That's pretty straightforward. So now we can play the game, and we should be able to play for a few rounds, which we showed before. But we don't want this to make an infinite game, so we will have a limit of 6 rounds. So in our event listener for clicking the keep score button, we're going to check, hey, if the round is bigger than 6, ... We haven't done anything yet. Stephen B, you're asking, would you say it's accurate then to say that dot notation is only going to work if you know the actual name of the key you're looking for, and if there's a variable involved in finding it, you need brackets? That's correct. Oh, yes. Let me just go back real quick before I forget. If I try and, look at this. So we have a variable called prop, which is equals to name. If I try to do object.prop, why take my word for it? Let's take a look. So there's my object. My prop is called name. Notice what happens when I try to console log object.prop. I get undefined. That's because the object does not have a property with the key prop. This is not holding the variable. That is referring to the name of the property, the name of the key in the object. But if I do it with bracket notation, object with bracket notation prop, remember prop, the variable is holding the value of the string name. And that gives me Florencia. This has mixed me up dozens of times, hundreds of times, thousands of times maybe. So look out for that. Let's keep going. Ooh. Okay. So we're going to use set timeout here. I don't know if we've done set timeout yet, but just a small refresher. This is going to take a callback function that is going to be run after 500 milliseconds. So the first argument is the callback function. And the second argument is the number of milliseconds before that will pass in time before before the function gets called. So after 500 milliseconds, we're going to print out game over, your total score is total score. Notice there's $ brackets, so that's a template literal. Do we want to try it out? That's going to involve me playing a lot of dice, and you're not going to even be able to see the alert. 5, 6. Okay. And half a second. There it is. Y'all can't see it, but I promise it's there. Oh, okay. So, Nudger just asking how prop isn't an object, and Stephen B answered for me. Thank you very much. Prop is a variable. So if you use bracket notation, JS or JavaScript will evaluate whatever that variable is assigned to. Do we want to make it more cursed? Why not? Let's go off on a tiny tangent. Because you're saying, hey, prop isn't a variable. Well, what if it is? Prop isn't an object. Y'all asked for it. So now prop is an object. So object.prop, if I try and console log that, if I try and console log object.prop.name or prop.name, let's see what happens. And we get, oh, sorry, I forgot a comma. Forgot a comma. Everything's fine. And we can ignore that error. Now let's, I thought I fixed it. Right, sorry. So check it out now. I get an error here. Object.prop.name cannot read property name of undefined. What's going on here? Object does not have a property called prop. So when we try to do object.prop, that gives us undefined. And when we try to do undefined.name, we get an error. Because undefined.name is not a thing. That's what this error is saying here. Cannot read property name of undefined. However, let's comment that out for a minute. Come back. Now, object with the key of prop.name, and prop.name is the string name. So really, as Stephen B said, it is whatever this expression evaluates to. So prop.name is name. So object's key value of name is Florencia. This is super cursed, and I apologize, but I just wanted to illustrate that a little bit. Let's keep going. How are we doing time-wise? Let me check how far we are. I don't want to do it all for you. Yeah, we'll do a handful more. I do want to give you all the opportunity to evaluate a couple of these for yourself. So next thing we're going to do is create a function called reset game. Yep. So, okay, when we play the game, the alert shows up with our final score, but we do want to be able to play by resetting to 0 rounds. So we're going to create an arrow function called reset game. Pat, pat. Now, inside our reset game function, we're going to reset the values of the dice to be an array of 5 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. Then We're going to assign score to be 0, total score to be 0, and round to be 1, because we're starting at round 1. Now, of course, we don't see that happen yet, and I bet that when the game starts, it's going to reset as well. Now, we're going to display those dice values as 0 as well. So list of all dice. You might be wondering, like, hold on a second. What is list of all dice again? No problem. We can double click on it and scroll up to see where it's defined. It's all of the elements with the class die, which is a singular form of dice. So for each, and our callback is going to take dice and index, node list, thank you, as parameters. Cool. Pat. So we're going to loop through all of those and assign it. And we've done this in the past, by the way. Dice.text content is equals to dice values array index. Feeling pretty good about that? I mean, that's going to be a 0 for each of them anyway. In theory, we could just put 0 instead of dice values r.index. But I guess this is more, accurate. The other thing we need to do is update the score texts, right? Showing the number of rounds, what value we're at, and all of that. So we're first going to assign total score text. Excuse me. Text content is equals to total score, which we know to be 0. We're going to do the same for the score history, where we're going to inner HTML equals to empty string. And the reason we're setting that is because we don't want there to be any of those here. And below that, we will current round roles text content to be the number of roles we've done, which we know to be 0. And the same goes for current round text. So hard to type these days. Text content to be round. Whew. Awesome. I want to take a moment to highlight what Jane is saying here. The record object exercise in the legacy JavaScript curriculum is really good for teaching the hard way, accessing the value of prop using the square brackets and the difference between dot and bracket notation. There you go. Stephen B's asking, do you mean the one called record collection? There is a recording of me doing this bootcamp years ago where I got super stuck on record collection because it's a very complex object. But I got a DM for, I was super stuck and I felt real bad. And then somebody wrote to me the day after or something and said something like, hey, thank you for showing me that even a senior dev can get stuck, which is true, by the way. Life-changing for me. All right. I'm feeling pretty good about doing one more. So we're going to call reset radio options when we reset our game. That was fairly short. And I'll leave it here. So let's take a step back and look at homework. Folks, if you've got questions, please start bringing them in. So as always with the homework, conceptually, there's only going to be applications of existing knowledge. There might be 1 or 2 tiny concepts that I invite you to please check out, but don't stress about doing all of them before tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll be doing our 4th project, which is the build a cache register. As usual, I will show you how we approach implementing it, but not so much giving you the full implementation of it. So I do invite you to take a look at this project, and remember, this is all self-paced. No one's going anywhere, and don't worry about, attending this stuff live. This is why we record all of this. Okay, so we have one question here, which is, Do you have any resources on what kind of portfolios to build for a front-end developer? So I don't have any resources on hand, but I do have some ideas, if I may. First off, I invite you to look at the portfolios of others, not to copy, just take a look at. You probably know folks from the internet who are posting about their journeys, who are posting about their work. Use a template. The projects you should showcase, I would recommend taking projects you've worked on already, maybe these ones from the boot camp, and putting your own spin into them, refactoring them, making them unique in your own so that you can showcase what your skills are. I want to be super clear to recommend not copying someone else's portfolio, but using them as inspiration. Just make them weird. Perfect. Yeah. By the way, we have in the Discord I think it's a JS feedback channel. If you want feedback, come and drop it in. Let me get a link to that Discord. Give me 1 sec, since I've got a minute or two. Website.club. Discord channel. Yes. Here you go, pals. You got to just react with the green check mark if you want to be invited to accept our terms, our code of conduct, and then we'll let you in via bot. Not a lot of questions today, huh? That's totally cool. Thank you all so much for joining. As I said, tomorrow we'll be back with the cash register project. It'll be super easy. We'll probably be doing mostly pseudocode. We'll see. That's it, folks. Wish you a most wonderful rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening. And take care. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you the next one. Bye for now.